This programme was funded by the Broadcasting Authority of Ireland with the television licence fee.
Welcome along to the sixth and final part of Leading the Field. Over the past 6 weeks, we have examined the remarkable horse racing culture of the East Cork, West Waterford region through the stories of local racing personalities. In this week's episode, we hear from the Tramore trainer on what it's like to train one of the best horses of the modern era, the Tallow native excelling in America, the East Cork men who teamed up to secure success at Killarney last season, a former bookmaker on the changing landscape of the betting ring, and two locally based racing journalists on what makes the game so special. Tommy Lyons is the Irish Examiner's horse racing correspondent. Upon moving to Youghal, the Dublin native immediately realised that the sport was particularly special in this part of the country.
I suppose I've been very lucky, Jordan, because where I lived in Dublin there wouldn't have been a horse racing stronghold. I mean, I was fortunate, I suppose, in some degree that Leopardstown was close by and there were a few tracks that you could get to. My parents had an interest. But in terms of my friends, it wouldn't have been something that we would have, as a group, we would have been into. But I've kind of followed it, and I've been fortunate enough. I've taken a few twists and turns along the way through computers and through whatever else jobs that I've been doing to get where I am today. And it's something I want. I've always wanted to come down to Youghal and to be immersed so much in it is absolutely fantastic. I mean, wherever I go nowadays, you can't go to the school gates or to the shop and somebody wants to talk about horses, I mean, that's what I love. That's something I would have thrived on as a younger person. And I just think, sometimes I kind of think maybe I came into it a bit late in life or be, that might have worked against me, but I'm now in the right place. I think, it's absolutely everywhere, whether it's somebody owning horses, whether they're breeding horses, they're training horses. We've got top jockeys. You look around every town or every small town around here, there's top jockeys. It's a fantastic area. If you could tighten up the area just a small bit, it'd be like Newmarket, it'd be like Kildare, it would be. There's just a tiny little bit spread out here. There's a lot of houses, a lot of towns around the place, but if you could draw them in together, when they get together, of course, on a racetrack or in the point-to-point fields, it's a very small community, but just such a highly successful one. I mean, as I said to you, I'm just fortunate to be part of it. I don't have that horse racing background that I wish I kind of had, I suppose. I've just chased a dream and I've got there to where I want to be, and I'm just lucky now that I've actually landed in a place where there's people who think the same as me, want to talk about the same things as me. Jordan, you're the same as me. You've a love for horse racing, and I tell you, we're just fortunate people that we can we have those people who want to talk about it, and they might even listen to us the odd time.
Henry de Bromhead is one of the finest trainers in both Britain and Ireland. I meet the Tramore native at his Knockeen stables in County Waterford. It's a real treat to be able to see the horses up close and being put through their paces on the gallop.
The hill is, I suppose, look, everyone has different ways of doing it, but we find the hill is great for them. It saves their front legs, which is where you get the most, a lot of problems, because they're cantering up against the hill, and it also sort of builds up their back end, which I suppose is, you would consider the engine, in the sense that, that's where they get power from to gallop. So obviously running up a hill would increase that. So yeah, we find it good now, but it varies. We vary it for different horses. Some go up the hills, some stay on the level. It depends on what makes them tick as well. You try and sort of make sure they're enjoying what they're doing, like any of us, I suppose. So you've got Full Cry in front with Little Folk, then Viscount de Noyer, who might run in Killarney next week, with Beckwith Star, who's going back to Galway hopefully, Bucker's Bridge, and Foxart, a young horse, Rio Lobo and Tis a Mystery, who's in Tipperary on Thursday, on Fiddler's Green, who's just come to us, he's in Kilbeggan on Friday, Heron Heights, who's been a bit disappointing, and Sadler's Risk, who won the Munster National last year. Actually, you're just observing more than anything, the riders as much as the horses, you give them their instructions, what you want them to do. Today is a sort of work morning for us, so they'd be doing a good bit more, and basically just making sure the horses are happy and riders are getting on well with each horse, and they're doing kind of what we've asked them to do.
After the work with the horses is done, it's into the office to organise plans for the next week's racing. Henry, your dad was a trainer. That's perhaps where your interest in racing stems from, and you've gained some valuable experience from him and other trainers along the way to getting your own licence.
My first job was in Kilsheelan stud, which is part of Coolmore. In those days, it was the National Hunt, part of the National Hunt farm. So there'd be My Native and La Fontaine and various other SARs there. So that was fascinating. And then I went to Longfield Stud, which was sort of a yearling part where we prepped the yearlings for the sales. Again, part of Coolmore. And after that, I went to Darrenstown Stud up in Maynooth, which is one of Sheikh Hamdan's, and did a breeding season up there. And so tried to get a sort of broad spectrum of the industry. After that, I went to England and I worked for Robert Olner, who was just leaving the point-to-point field and became a sort of fully fledged trainer, which was fascinating. And then came back to Waterford and worked for Ron Shaw, assisted Ron Shaw, who trained privately out in Kill. So did a year with him, and then a position came up as assistant trainer to Mark Prescott, to Sir Mark. So I went and worked for him for 2 years. So yeah, like I said, tried to see as much of the industry and meet people, etc., as I could, and came back to Coolmore then after that.
You didn't have to wait long for your first winner, and you didn't have to travel far for it either, because it was in Tramore. You've had many winners since then, but Sizing Europe was undoubtedly the best you've trained. What a star he was.
Oh yeah, he was amazing. He got he helped us build a business. He got my career going. He was just an incredible horse to have. He had his first run as a 4. He had just turned 4. He won his first Grade 1 age 6. I think he only missed 1 year where he didn't win a Grade 1, and he won his last Grade 1 age 13. We were trying to get him to do the racehorse to riding horse classes. He actually won in Dungarvan. He won at the Dungarvan show last year. Not quite sure if he's taken to it fully. So he's with Rosemary Connors at the moment, but we'll see what he'll do next. He was a very sound horse, so he could take his training very well, and he was just tough and brilliant jumper and great attitude, and he just had everything.
You've currently got many other top class horses at your stable, such as Specialty Era, Identity Thief and Sizing John, all Grade 1 winners. It's fair to say that things are looking good here.
Absolutely. We're very lucky. We've got a great team of people working here, brilliant owners supporting us, who are sending us nice horses. So, it kind of makes it a lot easier when you have all those things combined. It is busy, and but you know what? You wouldn't be doing it. You have to be pretty passionate about it. So you wouldn't be doing it just as a job. It's definitely more than that.
Another Waterford native who is excelling in the sport is jockey Mark Beecher. Mark hails from Tallow, and I meet him during a short holiday back home. His family love show jumping, but racing is very much his game, and since he moved to the US, it has become his way of life.
It's gone absolutely fantastic. It was a trip that I was to go out for 2 weeks initially, and that progressed into 9 weeks, and I'd ridden 5 winners, and then I got the opportunity to be sponsored and come back there and for a 5-year visa, and I took it up, and it's been fantastic ever since. I mean, I've won probably all the biggest timber races over there, in the Maryland Hunt Cup twice, the Virginia Gold Cup twice, the International Gold Cup 4 times, and pretty much the big timber races I've done and gone and won them. So it's I've been very fortunate too, with riding a lot of good horses over there. It is different. It takes a little bit of time to just adjust. I mean, what I specialise in is the timber racing, which is they're vertical timber fences, and you can't really get away with that much with them, as in like with the pine fences, they're kind of more like a triple bar, so there's a slope to them, and the timber fences are basically upright. The Maryland Hunt Cup is there. That's a race that kind of stands out. It's not really like too many others. They're big fences, and some of them there's 5 fences in that race that stand at 5 foot. So, I mean, they're pretty formidable. But, yeah, it is different, and the ground is very fast over there too. So that it does make a difference. And you're riding a lot of American-bred horses, so it's different. The Maryland Hunt Cup, if you YouTube it or look it up, it's probably the most famous race in America. I think this year was the 117th running. It's a race, if you can get around, you have a good chance, but I've ridden in it now 7 times, got around 4 times, won it twice, was second, and I've fallen 3 times in it, so it's a tough course. The Virginia Gold Cup and the Maryland Hunt Cup, there was only ever, I think it was 3 riders that have ever done it, and one of them was Charlie Fenwick, who actually, when he won the Hunt Cup a couple of times, they came over to Aintree and won the Grand National after it. And then I'd done the same double again last year. I won it on an 8-year-old horse called Raven's Choice, and then won the Virginia Gold Cup again on a horse called Grinding Speed, who's been very good to me. So now I am the only one that's ever managed to do it twice. My brothers they're running the farm here, and they've been very, very successful, and doing that and exporting a lot of horses. And I've done it up until I was 19, and I think I just got a bit fed up of it, and I went to work in the north at Scarva House Stud Alfred Buller's, and through there, I was breaking race horses up there, and I bumped into a man called Sammy Shields, and we were at a point one day, and there was schooling going on, and there was a bit of an unruly mare that no one really wanted to ride, and he said to me, did I want to school it around? And I jumped at it, and then he asked me if I wanted to get my licence. So I'd always thought I was too big, and I wouldn't be able to do the weight, so I never even thought about riding. So then I lost the race, and I said, geez, I'd love to ride one race. And then I rode one race, and the mare finished 6th. So I said, geez, I'd love to ride a winner. So then it kind of snowballed from there. And I was actually, for a southern guy, I was based in the north then for about 4 years, and it's where I rode most of my winners. And I think it was about 15, 16 pint winners. And then I won a bumper in England. It was kind of the normal for a lot of the northern trainers to go to the north of England to run horses there. So, and that's how I got into it. At the moment, I've just come home for a week, and it's just to get my visa sorted out for another 5 years, and I've been successful with that. So, I don't know if I'll be racing for the 5 years. It's if I can stay injury free, I'll definitely be doing it. And I enjoy it over there, so it's gone very, very well.
Betting is seen as a key component of horse racing. Millions of euro is placed on races at home and abroad each year, and the battle between punters and bookmakers is always an enthralling one at the major festivals. Johnny Deneen from East Cork follows the game religiously. As a serious punter and former bookmaker, he is in the perfect position to explain how the landscape of the betting industry has changed over the past 20 years, and what the future may hold for the layers.
It will not recover. But bookies are getting tighter. Like the people that you can win off of are getting thinner and thinner and thinner on the ground. There's no way of winning big money anymore. But the bookies can't win it either, because it's physically not there most of the time. And you go to the races now. The guys that go to the races are trying to eke out a living. The days of going to the races and bringing home proper money out of it are finished, and absolutely finished. But the business changed, the whole business model changed completely. But just technology took over, modernisation, the exchanges. Like, it was about a 3 or 4 pronged attack all at the one time, and that like put it away basically. It's soul destroying. There's no business. You can be a busy fool. I wouldn't go. Like, even to go to Cheltenham isn't really viable for an Irish fella anymore. Like, the expenses are just too big to go there, and if you bet big, you're running into a chance of losing. But to make it pay, you could make it pay all right, but you wouldn't have anything out of it. Like, by the time you'd everything paid, you couldn't possibly have anything out of it. Like, to play the game the way it should be played, it isn't viable anymore. You have to gamble now to win. Like, you have to get things right. If you don't get the races right, you lose, no matter whether you're a bookie or a punter. There'd be horse racing without bookies, without on-course bookies. It's almost at that stage already, because the bookies are most of the bookies are there are virtual bookmakers basically. They don't want to lay any bets in here for starters. And like, I've seen it from both sides, from betting, gambling and making a book. I wouldn't blame them either. Like, I couldn't do it myself in the finish. So I'm not going to be critical of bookies now that don't lay bets, because I did it myself at the finish. When I was winding up, you'd be afraid to lay a bet. That's the way it was. But like, pari mutual would work no problem over here. Absolutely. Like, and I mean, it's worked in every other country, like France and Hong Kong and all them places where they have huge prize money. And it would certainly, there's no need for bookies, like none in the world. They're already like in huge bother, like huge bother. A lot of them guys are still hanging around are guys that have nothing else to do. Like, it's been done through generations. Like, you can go and see, there is not one. I can't see one new young bookmaker coming into the game. Certainly, there's no young bookmaker that came into the game in the last 10 years in Ireland, the whole country, that's made any kind of an impression. And I'd say, like, you could count in one hand how many fellas actually even took out licenses. Like, it could be like 3 or 4 in the last 4 or 5 years, but not one guy has made it pay. Like, and they never ever will again either. Like, there's no guy going to come in, start off with his betting bag and become a millionaire out of it. No, them days are over anyway. It's an interest that it's something that's heightened by having a bet. It's like watching a football match without a bet and watching it with a bet. There's two different sensations, isn't there? Really, you know what I mean? So, I mean, I'm not saying for a moment that it would survive without betting, but it would survive without bookies, though. Without a shadow of a doubt, it would survive without bookies, and it would probably prosper without bookies. In fact, not alone just survive. But I mean, I like the notion of having no betting on it. I'm not so sure that like, could you imagine going to Cheltenham where nobody could bet? Like, I don't think so now, to be honest. Do you know what I mean? But it could definitely manage without the modern day bookmaker, and definitely on-course bookmakers. It could certainly manage without those guys anyway.
From betting to breeding, it's been a good year for local owner breeder David Brown, along with Dad Jim of Ballinvarrig Stud, which is situated just outside Youghal. David is a well-known businessman. However, horses are a huge part of his life too.
They'd be my passion. Anybody who knows me would know that. Would have been riding ponies from a young age. Don't know what age, but I know it was young. And but as a teenager, it became very apparent I was never going to make a jockey, both through riding ability and weight. So we moved into the stud world by moving to Newmarket at the age of 16 for 3 months, working in just as work experience there for a man from Tallow called Eric Cantillon. I came home then and finished my leaving cert because it was apparent it was necessary anyway, but the one thing only then was that the aim was to get into the national stud in England, and we got that, which was great, and you learn an awful lot, very intense course, so that was my start in racing. And but we also always had a few horses at home at that time. There was the likes of Tracy's Girl, which was my father's first winner and set the whole thing rolling. At that time then as well, he bred Avanti Express, who was famous for good and bad. He was the horse at the head of a doping scandal. When he, at odds of 5-1 on, he was doped and nearly killed it, but he seemed to recover and he won a few races afterwards and eventually went off favourite for an Irish national, so that wasn't too bad. So I was out of Ireland nearly 9 or 10 years. As I said, 3 to 4 years in Newmarket. a couple of years in Kentucky. Then we had Australia. I looked after Royal Academy for a year down in Australia. It was a good experience, different culture, different way of doing the horses, chasing them around with motorbikes instead of using a bucket and a rope, which was interesting, but it seemed to work for him. And obviously working for Coolmore, you get to work with a better class of horse. It was, at that time at 22, 23 years of age, you're sitting on a plane, you've Dane Hill on one side, Pentra Celebrity on the other, Dane Hill Dancer, Royal Academy, they were all there, and it was great to be able to work with stars like that. They're the kind of horses that anybody wants to be able to work with. It'd be nicer to own them, but working with them is nice. We breed 7 to 8 foals every year, and we would sell all the colts, almost always as foals. Occasionally we'd sell the odd filly, depending. We tried to keep a few for racing to continue the breeding as well. But we've had some success with that. It's, as anybody in the game knows, it takes a long time for what you do today. You mightn't see the benefit for 7 or 8 years, so it can be slow going, but we're happy with how it's going at the moment. Yeah.
You do own a really good mare, Kate's Benefit, who was trained by Ken Budds. She's currently in foal to Walk in the Park, the sire of Duvan and Min, who is generating lots of interest this year. But Kate's Benefit has given yourself some great days out on the track, hasn't she?
She won 5, and even some of the days we were second or third were great days out as well. Probably the best day was the day she was second in a Grade 3 in Cork. The Lumberstown Mares, Grade 3. She only just got beat on the line. She sprinted from the last, but look, probably just didn't quite get there on the day. But, they're the kind of horses you want to be breeding. And great excitement when you have one that's good enough to get the black type anyway, Nina won her twice, Danny won on her once, Davies won on her twice, so that's great. Ken done a great job training her, really minded her. And it was great, it was his first winner, but we're delighted to give it to him too, because he's conscientious young trainer, and everyone needs to start somewhere, and but yeah, it was a great local story. Great to have Davy riding her as well,
Looking to the future, do you see yourself buying more horses or becoming even more involved?
Oh, I'd love to look, but sure, time will tell. I suppose I'm doing more in it now than I was 2 years ago as well. It takes a lot of time, but business has to be looked after first and foremost. But yeah, ideally, look, if you had the choice, you'd be just doing up in the farm all day long, every day, playing with horses, doing stuff, rolling them, breaking them, lunging them, leading foals, anything that can be done, that needs to be done. That's the best part of working with horses, is the actual handling of the horses. The racing, look, it's great, but 9 times out of 10 they lose, so, it's actually more enjoyable. I find the stud work more enjoyable than anything. Dealing with him, watching him develop, helping him if a horse is a nervous, something that upsets him, trying to sort that out. And sometimes you can do it, and the results can be extraordinary, and sometimes there's no fixing them, so it's great. It's a nice story there if you look at the Cobbler Swain beating Ballinvarrig. Cobbler Swain, Jerry Russell bred him. The Ballinvarrig then, the first day he ran, my wife's first cousin rode him, who's now a top jockey in America. Look, he was only a fun horse, but he's turned out to be a great horse for us, a flagship horse, almost without being a superstar. But, it is great fun, even out the road there. Some of the mares that you can come across within 10, 15 miles a year are incredible. Having spoke to somebody from Kildare last year who came down to look at our foals, they have noticed a recurring theme that the foals down this area, probably something in the land, the amount of limestone, they have a little bit better bone. They tend to be a little bit bigger and stronger. Then he found his foals up on one of the oldest farms in Kildare. So, it's climate has a lot to do with it.
Ken Budds has looked after a number of horses for David and Jim Brown, but Kate's Benefit is the one that stands out above the rest for the Killa trainer.
She's the best mare I had so far anyway. Sure, Dave and Jim, they're fairly loyal to me at the moment, and I hope it'll stay that way. She was a good mare. She won 5. She was Group 3 placed. She placed a good few times. She's in foal now to Walk in the Park, I think. Yeah, I've Flemingsford filly. She's a full sister to Flaviana. She's 5-year-old, she might be nice. And they have a half-sister to Kate as well, a Flemingford filly. And they have an older girl that's point-to-pointing. He's after being second his last 2 runs now, so they've plenty on the go. I suppose when I moved back, I suppose 6 years now, I'd say. I'm back about 8 now. When I came down then, I got a bit friendly with Dave and they dropped me out. Kate's benefit actually, yeah. And worked away from there. I'd be quiet enough now in between times, I'd have 2 for the flat and there's another 3 there to run. I have 2 in that won in Ballingarry the last day 4-year-old. He used to go to the sales in Ascot. And another horse that was second, he used to go to the sales, so he's there as well. And there's a few breakers to come in. Anything I'll train. You're always trying to expand and get more, but it's difficult enough now. I don't know where it's going to go, You just keep the head down.
Your dad was a talented trainer, particularly with bumper horses.
Sure, he always trained greyhounds, horses. At one time I'd say he had about 20 horses in. Sure, someone had to ride him out. He wasn't going to pay anyone. When no one else around, I'd say I was training bumper winners. He was training plenty of them, mares especially. He'd buy his own mares and breed them and race them and sell them on. You always start with ponies. I suppose there was drag hunts on around then. They'd have been the big thing around instead of flappers. Well, flappers would have been big too, but I had a real good pony at it. And when he won the first one, all I wanted to do was win more. Kind of went on from there,
The final word goes to Ardmore's Brian Gleeson. A presenter with RTE and reporter with Channel 4 Racing, the man from Ballyquin is also involved in the game as an owner and breeder. It's safe to say that horse racing plays an enormous role in the life of Brian. He's extremely proud of where he comes from, an area that is leading the field.
Which is ingrained into us, isn't it? East Cork, West Waterford, jump racing, point-to-pointing, whether it was Killa, Dungarvan, Inch, Carricktool, and I suppose since we were knee-high to a grasshopper, we were brought to the local point-to-point by my dad, Liam Gleeson. And like going to your local GA match, I suppose you always go to your local GA match before you go to Crow Park, and that's where I suppose the love affair started. It started at the point-to-point level, and I just was besotted with it from a very, very young age. And I remember being in national school and running home back, and I think I'm up in the correction, 1981, I'm giving my age away now, 1981, when Sheargar won the Derby with Walter Swinburne, and at the time it was the Sporting Life, subsequently became the Racing Post, and getting a postal order in the Ardmore Post Office for Stirling for £4.95 and sending away for a portrait of Walter Swinburne winning the Derby on Sheargar. And it's maybe amazing when you reminisce now and look back, and I've children myself now, and I always encourage people. It's to bring the kids racing, whatever sport you love, because it definitely makes a mark in your young formative years of what your habits and your pastimes are going to be going forward. And racing is a special sport. And there's so many successful people, whether you mention Davy Russell or the Motherways or the Colemans or the O'Loughlin's or the Smithies or up that area, or the Harnedys, and I probably left out Arnold Tracy, like in that part of the world. And then you come over the bridge, and you mentioned the Browns or Green Flag Princess, and you come over the bridge, and then all of a sudden you have a late neighbour and great mentor, the late Garrett Ducey from Clashhannigan, Kinsale Beg near Ardmore, who we lost. Again, a wonderful dairy farmer, but what a trainer as well, from very, very small number of horses. And he was probably the man that really touched me in my young years, with my dad having a horse with him, and the late John O'Brien in Grange as well, who bred the magnificent Golden Signet, of course Bobby McCarthy's brother-in-law. So right around the whole area, whether you go from East Cork, West Waterford, and you go as far as Dungarvan with the Kileys and the Queeleys, and then you swing back up towards Tallow and the Henleys and Bobby McCarthy, what a great man he is. So it's absolutely priceless. The sport of horse racing, whether it is breeding, whether it is jockeys or owners or trainers or people that love punters, love having a bet, racing is ingrained in us here in East Cork, West Waterford.
Leading the Field was funded by the Broadcasting Authority of Ireland with the television licence fee. It was produced and presented by Jordan McCarthy, edited by Tom Maher, and the sound engineer was Thomas O'Keeffe. A Community Radio Youghal production.